50. Hello, everybody. Tyrone TG3 here. Pocket the Monster. Horizons. Episodes 55 and 56. Now, I am recording all these back to back because, like I said, I missed out on a lot of Pokemon Horizons episodes. And weirdly, I'm still not caught up after this. But I'm knocking out these reviews now while I got the time to do it. So, with those being said, these two deal with a little bit of last episode goes into this episode, but I still wanted to have that one episode be reviewed by itself because it didn't really follow like the same line as these next two episodes. 55 and 56 are more or less on their own, but we learn here from the Mr. Cavell, we learn from the dean that to celebrate the kids completing their basic test, they're having like a little bit of I guess you can call this like a field day or an exercise. They're essentially tag teaming with a gym leader in order to fight an Elite Four member, which that begs the question. There's only 8 gym leaders. Do they have enough gym leaders? And there's only 4 Elite Four. Do they have enough people to do that with? How long do battles take? I don't know. It's too much questioning. Obviously, we know the main battles we're focused on is Liko, Dot, and Roy. Kinda wish Nimona got a battle. I think that would have been so cool. And as the kicker, they should have made it so Nimona doesn't have a gym leader. She just uses 2 Pokemon, and we gotta see how well she can control both. That would have been so cool. Or have her fight against Gita, and then we could do like an exhibition match, and we can see how strong Gita is compared to Nimona, and we can see how strong Gita is for the series. Yo, man, that would have been so cool. It would have been like a Diantha versus XY Ash situation. The first one, not the second one. That would have been so cool. I'm a little upset they didn't do that. That's wasted potential. That would have been fire. I would have loved that. Nimona hasn't had any good fights. She had one fight against Roy, and even that one was kind of lackluster. So yeah, I would have banked. I would have put money down on the Gita versus Nimona like fight. That would have been really cool. But regardless, whatever, we end up getting our first gym leader versus Elite Four match with student. That's Ayano and Dot versus Poppy. And oh man, you love to see it only because you know Poppy's like what, 5 years old. She's like 5 or 6. She's a child. She's like a little kid. I like to think she's like 4 or something. It's pretty funny. Anyway, she ends up using Tinkaton, the final evolved form of Tinkatink. And then I believe she also ends up using I'm trying to remember what Qfon's final evolution is. And I don't know why what's this thing called? Qfon's final evolution. It's bugging me now that I can't remember it. I gotta remember it. Oh no. I'm starting to forget Pokemon names. No. Dang it. I know this. Qfon's final evolution is called it's gonna hit me like a ton of bricks later on. Yeah, it's gonna hit me like a ton of bricks. It's kind of bugging me too. It's bugging me that I don't remember. I'm gonna look it up, but it's one of those things I wish I didn't have to do that with. Capraja! Jesus Christ, it's Capraja. Anyway, Capraja's out, and they end up fighting together. They end up using Sandstorm in order to negate. Although Ayana winds up using Discharge, and I'm like, that's stupid. Why would you do that? The Discharge is going to hurt Quaxley the most because Quaxley is a water-type Pokemon. Why did she do that? My guess is that she just didn't have any other attacks or whatever. Whatever. Anyway, during the fight, Dot wants to Terra her, or not Dot, sorry. Ayana wants to Terra her Belly Bolt, but can't. Because she knows that it's against the rules for the gym leader to teleport. And from what I see, it looks like it's against the rules for the Elite Four members to terrestrialize. I think only the students can do it because it's meant to make them shine. But put a note on that because we're going to save that for later. Anyway, we move on and we'll skip a few here because Dot basically wins by having Quaxley like tap dance on top of Belly Bolt's stomach. He does this on purpose so that he can activate the electromorph ability so that can do more damage. Meanwhile, Quaxley winds up fighting off against Tinkaton while Belly Bolt ends up using a supercharged Zap Cannon and wipes out Cop Raja. The rule here is if one of the Elite Four members' 2 Pokemon gets knocked out, the student automatically wins the fight. Keep note of this as well. Put a pin on it. We're going to save it for later. Overall, good battle. Dot ends up winning. Next fight is Roy and Brassius versus, what's that teacher's name? The art teacher. I believe his name is Hassel. And Hassel ends up using Flapple and Baxcalibur. Now, in this fight, we learn that Baxcalibur has the ability Thermal Energy. Fuecoco ends up hitting Baxcalibur, which makes the Baxcalibur stronger. Well, this is problematic. Yes, like very problematic. So, they end up getting stronger. And Brassius ends up using his Dollop. Not sure why he didn't use Arboliva. He used his Dollop in this fight. Well, Dollop ends up combining like several moves like Helping Hand in order to make Fuecoco's Flamethrower stronger. He also ends up using like Bullet Seed and combines it with Fuecoco's attacks. We end up seeing Roy have Fuecoco use the Disarming Voice, which does a lot on both Dragon-type Pokemon. Like, it's a pretty good fight. And I love that they're using like combinations and mixes. And since Brassius and Hassel are both artists, we see that it low-key becomes like a contest battle at some point. And I like that. I do like that. And it's very clear what they're also doing. They're having each of the trainers, the students, do a battle using the same teachers that they did their test with. That makes sense. Like I can see why they did it. It's very, very obvious, but I can see why it happens. In the end, I believe because Baxcalibur got so powered up with the Thermal Energy ability, it ends up using a Galv Chop. It uses its signature move and ends up hitting Fuecoco and pretty much knocking it out. Dollop and Fuecoco end up getting knocked out. Roy loses the fight, but it's a cool looking fight. Like, we'll give it that. And again, they don't terrestrialize. Keep note of that. The Elite Four members do not terrestrialize here. So, we move on to our third fight. And in our third fight, we have Liko and Katie versus Rika. And I know she's pretty, but try not to get intimidated or anything. She actually says that line, which is pretty cool. But when the fight happens, Rika's using DUGTRIO and Clodsire. Now, this is a pretty solid team. Liko's obviously using Florgato, and Katie ends up using one of the coolest bug-type Pokemon on the planet, Lokix. And when the fight happens, Katie's not doing much of anything at first. I think she wanted to give Liko time to, like, really fight. So, Florgato's whole strategy was to hit DUGTRIO, and DUGTRIO ends up using Dig. It dodges the Sludge Wave because the Sludge Wave is a Poison-type move, but unfortunately, DUGTRIO catches it by using Dig each time it lands. So it's a pretty decent combo, actually. It's a pretty legitimately good combo. The problem starts to become much later. So finally, Katie is like, all right, I see that Liko found a way around the Dig strategy by using Vine Whip, but I'm going to have to go ahead and step in. Katie ends up having Lokix fight off, and it saves Florgato at last minute from the poison jab, but unfortunately that means Lokix winds up getting poisoned due to all of this. And since it took so much damage, Katie's Lokix activates its Swarm ability, which allows it to become much stronger. So we see the animation budget goes up by like several dollars, and Lokix goes in and winds up like knocking away all this stuff using Breaking Swipe, and ends up using a Lunge and Bounce, and it's like knocking all this stuff away and the camera's whipping. I was like, yo, why is it so good right now? Why did it choose to just, I don't know why Katie just suddenly went Super Saiyan for no reason. But yeah, she ends up having low kicks go in, and low kick finishes it off with a bounce on DUGTRIO, which paralyzes it. Well, now we get to the annoying parts of the fight. Low kicks finally gives way to the poison, so it faints. So now Liko has to fight Clodsire and DUGTRIO, I'll say that in air quotes, alone. I say DUGTRIO in air quotes, alone, because something weird happens. So the bounce makes DUGTRIO paralyzed. That's fine. Bounce does that. I can understand that. The issue I have with that is DUGTRIO should still be able to move at some point. Paralyzation isn't permanized to a point where a Pokemon can, unless your luck is really bad. Paralyzed doesn't make it so the Pokemon doesn't move at all. It just means there's some occasions where the Pokemon may or may not be able to move. If a Pokemon gets paralyzed, it can attack one turn, but the odds of it attacking the next turn are going to be kind of weird. So it might get like held down and you see the electricity like cover their body a little bit to like stun its movements or something. That doesn't happen at all. DUGTRIO's paralyzed the whole fight. And in fact, we don't get a close-up of DUGTRIO at all during the fight. We only get back camera shots from like far up, and we see a little bits of lightning surrounding DUGTRIO, as if to imply that that paralyzation just sort of scooted DUGTRIO out of the way. But why?
What?
Okay. But that's not even the annoying part. The annoying part is that Liko has to fight both Clodsire and DUGTRIO, and the DUGTRIO is paralyzed and has a huge weakness against grass because it's not part poison like Clodsire. So the solution seems like it would be obvious, especially since they said it earlier in the episode. Earlier in the episode, both Rika and Katie tell Liko to observe your surroundings. Okay, well in my surroundings, Clodsire's hard to beat. It's bulky, it's a ground and poison type, so grass type moves do neutral damage. There's one Pokemon, however, that is not only paralyzed, it's normally fast but slowed down due to paralysis, and has a glaring weakness against grass types. Attack the damn DUGTRIO, Liko! Oh my god! You can argue maybe Rika is covering DUGTRIO. Then that's fine! We learn later in the fight that Florgato ends up learning acrobatics. That's perfect! Use Quick Attack towards Clodsire. Make it look like you're gonna attack Clodsire, only to flip it and like fake it out. Use Acrobatics, flip over its body. Clodsire's not that fast, so it won't be a problem. And then right as he flips over, use Magical Leaf straight towards DUGTRIO. DUGTRIO's paralyzed anyway, so it's not gonna be able to move as fast. It can't dodge, knocks out DUGTRIO. Florgato's the winner. Remember, if the student can knock out one of the two Pokemon, then that student wins the fight. Well, here, for some reason, we have a permanently paralyzed DUGTRIO that has a huge weakness against Magical Leaf. Seize the moment! What are you doing? Why are you attacking Clodsire? It's clear this thing is way too defensive. It's clear this thing is way too powerful. What are you doing? And then you could have just terrestrialized too to make the Magical Leaf do more damage. But for some reason, it almost feels like the fight was, we want Liko and Rika to fight in a one-on-one fight. But we realize that we can't knock out DUGTRIO because if we do, then Liko would win the fight. So we just have to write DUGTRIO out of the script. That's essentially what they did. It's so weird. Like, why did they do this? It feels so off. Now for the icing on the what the fuck cake. Now, remember when earlier I said that the Elite Four and the gym leaders don't terrestrialize because none of them do? We never see Hassel do it. We never see Poppy do it. So you would think, okay, yeah, they can't terrestrialize. Only the students can. No, Rika terrestrializes. Yep. Clodsire terrestrializes and ends up using Earth Power and completely beats Florgato. And Liko loses, and Liko begins to cry. Now, let's talk about that. Liko crying. I get it. She's upset because she got more into this fight than she normally does. I'm not sure why the day this episode happened, there was a lot of back and forth on Twitter about Liko's attitude. I simply deduced it as, okay, she's more into battles now. She's definitely getting a feel more for battles. She's definitely trying her hardest to like actually win battles now rather than just accept whatever's happening. So because she's putting her best foot forward in a fight and getting stronger in the fight, then obviously her need to win goes higher, and thus when she loses, it takes more damage. That I get. That's absolutely fine. But my problem is there's so many ways she could have won. This isn't even an issue of, oh, she's not good enough. I just saw a glaring way she could win the fight. And for some reason, the episode, it's almost like the episode needed her to lose for this specific moment, but it went weirdly out of its way to make sure that happened. It was like the writers were doing something. Now, obviously, the writers have to do this for her development. It's necessary. But the thing about writing fiction, it should never feel like that to the audience. The audience shouldn't be able to see why something's happening like that. It should be in universe, something that we can fully believe. Here, I can't because DUGTRIO was such an obvious target thanks to everything that Katie had set up for her. It feels weird that she didn't wind up taking that victory. Because it almost feels like they went every which way they could to essentially, like, if they really wanted to do that, I don't know. I feel like DUGTRIO could have, like, used sand tumors or rock tomb or something to keep, like, Katie in place or, like, to stop, or, I don't know. I feel like there's another way they could have done it. But it's so dangerously obvious that all the pieces are lined up specifically so Liko can have this moment. And it's so jarring. From the Elite Four member being able to terrestrialize despite the fact that the other ones didn't. From DUGTRIO suddenly just being unable to battle at all. From Liko's weird reluctance to only attack Clodsire and not the weakened DUGTRIO. From Katie wind up getting knocked out like dangerously fast. And a lot of stuff geared its way towards this specific moment. And that's kind of what bugs me. But it's over. And the battles don't really count for anything. The stakes aren't really high. It was mostly just exhibition matches for fun. They're not getting graded. It's not a test or anything. So whatever. At the end of the day, that's what it's supposed to be. And that's what they said. The battles are just for fun. There's one more battle that I completely skipped over. But that's because this one was used as more of a comedy moment. And I do like it. And then there's another Team Explorers moment that I want to talk about as well. So, in the previous episode, we see that Sango ends up teaming up with the fish gym leader. I can't remember what the dude's name is right now, and I'm not going back to find it. But she ends up having Glalie use explosion. And that's hilarious. She just, it explosion! And like it explodes. And I just love that Flamigo and Oricorio just sort of stare. They just look at their impending doom and they blow up. And every Pokemon's knocked out. Well, Sango still loses. The reason is because the Pokemon that caused the explosion is going to be the one that loses the fight. And that's the official VGC rule too, so that makes sense. Sango gets so mad at this, and Larry goes, bro, your personal rules aren't going to mean anything in the real world. And I'm like, base, Larry's based, y'all. But he said, get your emotions out of here, bro. The real world doesn't give a damn. I love that. That was fun. I liked it. And again, battle has no stakes, so it was pretty funny to just see Sango run off and get mad. It was fun. Sango's one of my favorite characters, and I love that she just blew everybody, and she just basically did a final Vegeta explosion and blew everybody to smithereens. That was great. That was funny. That was a funny moment. The other Explorers moment we get, we also get Onyx. He ends up having a fight, and in that fight, he ends up losing, but we see that Tulip asks why he's like this, and he tells him, and she goes, I guess that's your aesthetic. I like that. They didn't have to have Onyx and Sango moments, but they did. And you know what? I'm not against it. I'm for it. That's fine. The big plot related thing we run into actually has to do with Dot and Penny. So Dot and Penny are actually involved in this episode. Or not, is it Penny or? Yeah, it's Dot and Penny. Yeah. Dot and Penny have a very plot heavy part of the episode. Liko asked Terapagos to be watched by Dot this time around. But unfortunately, Terapagos wanders off like it always does. I really hate this plot. Well, I hate Terapagos' running gag. When she goes into the library to find it, she ends up running into Penny. And Penny knows all about Dot because Penny's job is to do research on every person because she's a part of the Pokemon League's, like, database. So this must take place after the events of the video game. Reason being is because she doesn't get that job until afterwards. So that's pretty good. It's good to see that they actually used the post-game Penny. So when she does her research on it, they end up seeing, what's her name? I believe it's Chalice. Well, not Chalice. Yeah, I think it's Chalice. So they end up seeing her. And when they end up seeing her, turns out she's suspicious because Penny's like, yo, I have data on like every teacher in the school, and this woman's data just sort of shows up out of pure nowhere. So when Dot goes to like talk with her for a little bit, they have like a very sort of engaging conversation, and then after that they walk off. But Dot ends up running into the Scarlet book, where we see Terapagos' like shining form or radiant form, whatever you want to call it. But it's obviously foreshadowing towards the events of Area Zero. So the show is aiming towards that plot, which is good. And we see that afterwards, Liko's battle, for some reason, caught the attention of Grusha, the boy gym leader, who's the eighth gym leader. And Gita catches wind of this as well. So they have a little brief exchange after that, and then they walk off. And pretty much the episode sort of ends that way, with Roy, Liko, and Dot developing more due to that small little exhibition saga. And yeah, I like it. I'm gonna combine these two episodes, 55 and 56, and just give it a score. I'm giving it an 8. It doesn't earn the 9. Liko's episode sadly messes it all up. Yeah, the battle. The problem is that I can just so very much see the problems. And again, I'm not going to judge it too harshly because, again, there's no stakes in the fight. They're not earning badges. It's not for a test. It's not for anything. It's just sort of, let's kick back and have a fun little event. So I can't get too mad at it. But Liko's fight makes it horrifically jarring how many writing flaws were made for that specific battle to make that specific event happen to Liko. It's just very glaring. I'm also disappointed Anne didn't get a fight. I think it would have been kind of cool if Anne had got a fight, but for some reason they didn't give her one. Whatever. But now that that's all said and done, episode 57 will be a Terapagos. I don't know. So with that, I will see y'all then, everybody. Have a good one. Tyrone TG3 out.